Okay, let's talk about something we've all worried about at some point. That little moment of doubt right before you lean in to talk to someone. Yep, we're talking about bad breath. It's super common, but it's also really misunderstood. And spoiler alert, the answer probably isn't just another piece of gum. Today, we're going to figure out what your breath might actually be trying to tell you. So, why does it even happen? Where does it come from? We're going to break down the science, point out the usual suspects, and most importantly, talk about the real solutions that go way beyond just a quick temporary fix. The tricky part about bad breath is you can't really smell your own. It's almost impossible to know if you have it yourself because you just get used to it. So, how do you find out? It might feel a little awkward, I know, but honestly, the best way is to just ask someone you trust, a good friend, your partner, a family member. It's the most reliable way to know for sure. Now, our first instinct is usually to reach for a quick fix, right? Gum, mints, a big swig of mouthwash. But those things are just, well, they're masks. They're a cover-up job that only lasts for a little while. What we're going to focus on today are the real solutions, the things that actually tackle the root cause, like your daily hygiene, and, if needed, getting some medical advice. That's how you actually solve the problem. All right, so where do we even begin? The great news is your first line of defense is totally in your control. It all starts with a few simple habits you can start doing like today. Okay, these three things, they're the absolute must-dos. First, brushing your teeth, and don't forget your tongue after you eat. Why the tongue? Well, it's like a shaggy carpet where smelly bacteria just love to hang out. Second, you've got to floss every single day to get that gunk out that a toothbrush just can't reach. And third, drink lots of water. It helps rinse your mouth out naturally all day long. If you can master these three, you're building a really strong foundation. But what if you're already doing all of that and the problem just isn't going away? Well, that's a huge clue that it's time to look past the toothbrush and start digging into some of the deeper causes. So what could those deeper causes be? Well, it turns out there are about 8 main culprits that account for most cases of bad breath that just won't quit. Let's walk through them. First up, no big surprise here, food and tobacco. We all know that things like onions and garlic can have an effect. But here's the wild part. It's not just foods stuck in your teeth. The smelly compounds from those foods actually get into your bloodstream, travel to your lungs, and you breathe them out. That's why the smell can stick around for hours. And then there's tobacco, which is a real double whammy. It has its own unpleasant smell, and it massively boosts your risk for gum disease, another huge cause of bad breath. Because number 3 is the most direct one, just not cleaning your mouth well enough. When you leave little food particles behind, they basically become a feast for bacteria. And that allows a sticky, clear film to start growing all over your teeth. And that film has a name, plaque. You can think of it as basically a biofilm, a whole city of bacteria. And if you don't clear it away every day with brushing and flossing, it gets hard and starts to really annoy your gums, which, you guessed it, opens the door to bigger problems. And if that plaque gets left alone for too long, it can lead to something much more serious called periodontitis. This is a nasty gum infection where the plaque actually creates little pockets between your teeth and gums. It can damage your gums and even the bone underneath. So, getting rid of plaque isn't just about smelling fresh, it's about protecting the very foundation of your mouth. Next, let's talk about causes 4 and 5, dry mouth and medications. Your spit is actually amazing. It's your body's own natural mouthwash, constantly rinsing away food and bacteria. But when your mouth gets dry, that whole cleaning process just stops. This is exactly why we get morning breath, because our saliva flow slows way down when we sleep. On top of that, a lot of medications can cause dry mouth as a side effect, or even release chemicals that you end up breathing out. Then you've got other little bacterial hotspots. I mean, infections in your mouth from things like a tooth decay or after a surgery, that's a pretty obvious one. But it could also be something like tonsil stones. Yeah, those are little things that can form in your tonsils and trap tons of odor-causing bacteria. Even something like postnasal drip from a sinus infection can be the cause because it carries bacteria from your nose down into your throat. And finally, the 8th category. And we have to talk about this one because it's so important. In some less common cases, really persistent bad breath can be a sign from your body that something else is going on, like chronic acid reflux or even certain diseases that can create specific chemical odors. This is exactly why a problem that doesn't go away is something you should never, ever just ignore. So that brings us to the really critical question. If you've been doing everything right at home and you're still struggling, what's the next step? Well, it's time to call in a professional. So if that's you, if you've been brushing and flossing and drinking your water like a champ, but the problem is still there, stop trying to just cover it up. That's a clear signal from your body that it's time to get it checked out. Here's the game plan, nice and simple. Your first stop is always your dentist. They can give you a really good professional cleaning that might just solve the whole thing right then and there. They'll also check you for gum disease or any other oral issues. And if they look everything over and say your mouth is perfectly healthy, then they can refer you to a doctor to investigate other possible causes. So as we start to wrap this up, let's just step back and reframe this whole thing. What if we stop thinking about bad breath as just a problem we need to get rid of, and instead we start thinking of it as a message? Because this is really the whole idea right here. The gum, the mints, the sprays, that's just the mask. But the actual smell, that's the message. It's a signal. It's your body trying to tell you something important about what you're eating, about your daily habits, or maybe even about your overall health. So let's boil it all down. What do you need to remember? First, bad breath is a signal, not just a smell. Second, most of the time, the cause starts right in your mouth and it's totally manageable. But third, if it just won't go away, that's your cue to see a professional. And most important of all, don't just mask the symptom. Go find the cause. So the next time you think about your breath, don't just automatically reach for a mint. Take a second and ask yourself this one simple but really powerful question. What could my breath be telling me? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.